In today's show, I've got Austin Searle, who is planning to run for the U.S. Senate to challenge Mike Lee's seat in Utah. But first, Andrew, warm us up. Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Austin Searle, welcome to the Nerd Zone, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Just warming up. Trying to get these donations in. Me and the campaign, we've been working extremely hard. Especially if we want to go up against someone with, that's a Republican. Utah has always been a Republican state, so we're just getting warmed up and getting ready.
All right. Well, we're going to get into your race very shortly. But before we do that, let's talk about Austin Searle, the man. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, where'd you grow up? What's been your life journey, and how'd you get to this place to decide to run for Senate?
So let's first start off with, I was born in American Fork. I was raised in Lehigh, which is just southeast of American Fork. So when I have moved to Lehigh in the early 2000s, me and my twin brother have got into recording music. So we have always dreamed of being musicians. We were mostly into rap and hip hop. We have been a recording artist for about 10 years. We didn't see a way forward with continuing our music career. Then I have attended college for graphic design at Stevens Henniger. So after a month of attending, they have realized that our diploma was not an actual diploma. It was considered a certificate of completion. So we couldn't continue. That is one of the reasons which you can visit my website, austinforsenate.com. You will see that one of my proposals is that we eliminate a certificate of completion, as no colleges or college will accept it, as we were informed after graduation that a certificate of completion was the exact same as a regular diploma. And for those of you who are not familiar with what a certificate of completion is, well, basically all you need to know is that it just means you completed high school, right? So the reason I want to eliminate it is not for the fact that we were lied to regarding it was a regular diploma, but for the fact that you basically have no future and completely a waste of graduation, in my opinion. All right. So unless you want to tell people, oh yeah, I've graduated with a certificate of completion. Anyways, back on the topic here. And then I have met my wife at the time when I was in a dark place. She has taught me so much in regards to wanting to be a better person and having common relationships and fellowships with others. She taught me a lot. I've also started a nonprofit called Relationship Quotes, which our main goal was to help others with their relationships. The nonprofit organization was doing fairly well, and and to this day, it's still growing. Uh, and this is where we go into politics. So my twin brother is the one who had mentioned, hey, check out this guy Andrew Yang. So I watched an interview of Andrew Yang and instantly became a Yang supporter. I have done many things to help out the campaign in regards to phone banking, talking with local communities about Andrew Yang, that sort of stuff. Not necessarily being affiliated or a part of the campaign, just helping out as much as I can as a regular supporter would.
Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing, Austin, and being so candid about some of the milestones along the way. Your story about the certificate of completion, it's a very profound one because I think so many of Americans are convinced that, number one, some type of college degree is just like the only way forward after high school. And second, that they get tricked into taking out huge loans and going to places thinking like, well, this is my ticket to, like some amazing job just a few years down the road. And then they end up, in your situation where you're like, wait a minute, this is not what I thought I signed up for. I put all this time into it. What are your thoughts on beyond banning certificates of a completion? We still have this root cause of people finishing high school and wondering like, hey, I could go to college or what? And my opinion is they don't have a lot of alternatives. I know Yang was a big proponent of vocational training, and certainly other countries do a lot of that. We don't seem to believe in that here as much, but I will give credit to the Trump administration that I think they were making some efforts there with Ivanka and vocational training. But what are your thoughts on other types of things that we can do to give people more opportunities so that they don't feel like the choice is to go bankrupt with an expensive 4-year university degree, which may or may not benefit you, or to go somewhere and get a certificate of completion that doesn't really carry a lot of weight? Like, what else can they do? What else do you think they should be able to do?
Well, first and foremost, we need to get rid of certificate of completion altogether. There's just no way forward, and there's no way for anyone to have that success and to be able to attend a college that they want to go to with a certificate of completion. It just basically means that you completed high school. First, they thought it was a diploma. They let us in, but altogether, the reason I think that we should eliminate it is because we actually did not know that it was a certificate of completion until we walked down the aisle with the rest of the school. So basically, when I graduated in 2010, I walked down thinking I was getting a high school diploma. And then afterwards, I open it up and see that certificate of completion, and I'm like, okay, what the hell is this? So altogether, it's very disappointing, and it's not worth it. Not worth it.
Mm. Now, take us to your decision to run for office. Why do it? Very few people want to do it. What sort of was in your calculus that this was the right call for you?
So basically, I'm just looking at the things that Mike Lee had done. I've been following his campaign for quite a while, keeping tabs on what he's been doing and what he's accomplished. And basically, he's done a lot for the state. I'm not gonna lie. He's he's done quite a bit. But when it comes to relief, especially during this pandemic, he had voted against a stimulus bill. And the funny thing, a part of it is the 2000 stimulus bill that we all want to come. He's not going to vote at all. He's not going to vote yes, or he's not going to vote no. So basically, that's the reason that I decided to run. If he's not going to step up, and he's not going to take care of the state that he's representing, and no one else is willing to go up with him or go up against him, I will run and I will beat him. But I cannot beat him without the support of the people. So I talked to a Democratic Party for the Utah County, and they have told me, they're like, "Are you sure you're wanting to run up against Mike Lee, who had in 2016, when he was reelected for his second term, he had raised over $4 million." I had talked to the Democratic nominee who ran up against Mike Lee in 2016. She's a transgender woman who had, at first when I talked to her, I thought she sounded like a guy, but then when I researched her, obviously I knew I was talking to the right one. But she basically gave me some insight onto what to do, and kind of guiding me through this process, as I've never ran for political office before. So I think if we all come together, and if we get our message out to Utahns, there's a lot of Utahns actually that likes the fact that I'm running up against Mike Lee, that supported him back in 2016. So for the fact that he doesn't represent the people and the communities, especially during this pandemic, I will run against Mike Lee and I will win. There's actually a lot we have to do in order to beat Mike Lee, but I think one of the important things is letting Utahns know the truth.
What was some of the advice that you could share that you got from was it Misty Snow, the person who ran against Mike last time? Like what advice did she give you?
So she was basically just telling me how the process goes. She was a Democratic nominee for which I've already mentioned. But she was just basically giving me advice, and said that a lot of people's been reaching out to her. So we had a great conversation about the process and what's the way to beat Mike Lee.
The interesting thing about the Utah Democratic primary is it doesn't look like it actually takes that many votes to win. It seems like it's not let's call it not a heavy Democratic state. I'm just sharing my screen here briefly. From my research here, it looks like Misty won it with 28,900 votes, so an extra 9,200 votes. She beat Jonathan Swinton in 2016 to get the Democratic nomination. Then in the actual general election, she lost by basically a pretty good margin, almost 70-30. And I guess the question for you, Austin, is, well, number one, it looks like to get the Democratic nomination, it's not out of the question. Like, you don't need to get millions of votes. It looks like you get tens of thousands and you can do it. But here's the bigger question is like, oh, well, this is a 70-30 outcome in 2016, and if you say Utah presidential election results, Utah, I'm guessing it was probably pretty strong Trump country. Yeah, 60-40 for Trump. So how does a pro basic income or pro Yang Democrat win in a state that even in 2020 still went for Trump by quite a margin?
That's a great question. So basically, what we need to do is just not about universal basic income, but I think the best way is to put money directly into people's hands and let them see, especially the one that's struggling. There's a mother of 6 who cannot afford supporting her kids living on a minimum wage of $725 an hour. So putting money directly into people's hands will get them the opportunity to see, hey, this can actually work. UBI is actually the reality. Um, and basically, I wanna put money directly into people's hands. And I wanna interview them after quite some time and see how has it affected their day by day lives. Um, and I think people's going to start realizing that UBI is actually something that we can make happen.
How did you decide to run for Senate, Austin, versus a different office? I was doing some research actually for my other project of the people, and what we found was that 80% of people in Congress and Senate previously held a state or local office. You mentioned you decided to go, this is your first time running, to go straight for the Senate. I'm curious, had anyone counseled you to maybe go for city council or county commissioner or something like that before going for a Senate seat?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great question, Tom. So basically, a lot of people have actually said, "Hey, why are you running for Senate? Why not like run for mayor or
Mm-hmm.
something like that?" That's a great question. So the reason I want to run for Senate is because I think the American people should have a voice in the United States Senate. Um, I'm running because I don't think Mike Lee should run for a third term. Um, so basically, no one here. I even talked to Misty Snow, who ran up against him in 2016. She said that no one here is willing to run because of what happened in 2016. So with that being said, I believe that if I don't run, no one else will, and we need to get Mike Lee out of office. I'm willing to, all he does is platitude talk. We need the people to have a voice in the United States Senate, and I decided to run because he's not keeping the promises that he had made that got him reelected.
Now, if Mike were to get criticism from you, I'm guessing he would say, hey, Utahns are pragmatic people. We believe in balancing budgets and, spending less than you take in. And these ideas of a basic income are, um, radical left socialism, yada, yada. How do you plan to respond to those kind of expected attacks?
So honestly, I think that Mike Lee will come out eventually and say, "Hey, this person has never ran.
Mm-hmm.
He has never ran. He has no experience in what he's running for. I believe that these attacks will come, uh, and honestly, he's going to try to use that against me, and I wouldn't doubt it. I know for a fact that he will. But the reason that I'm going to beat him is for the fact that he has not done what he promised that he would do, and uh, Utah is a red state, and I believe that a lot of folks will vote for Mike Lee in 2022. But if we can get the message out there and get actually have proof of all the votes that he voted against, anything with relief, like there was a Puerto Rico hurricane relief which he voted against. I'm assuming because it wasn't related to Utah, but even if it was, he would have voted against that bill. Um, so I think the best way forward is not having Mike Lee in Senate.
All right. So, Austin, let me ask you a little bit about your take on current events. Been a crazy week for America. First of all, yeah, just kind of high level. What happened this week? What do you think went on?
This week is it's pretty crazy. I've talked with the locals about doing these events. Of course, a lot of events are not taking place, especially around this pandemic. But I've been talking with a lot of locals, and they're looking forward to me running in 2022. So right now, my main focus for the campaign is to make sure that we raise enough funds so that we can starting 2022 we can actually hopefully this pandemic is over by then, that we can actually go on television and we can get our message heard and our message out to more Utahns. But our main focus right now for 2021 is raising the funds, and hopefully we can raise enough that we can go up against Mike Lee. But it's not going to be easy without doing so.
What was your interpretation of the events in the Capitol earlier this week? Were you shocked? Were you annoyed? Was this kind of what you expected? What's your take on what happened?
So basically, I blame it all on Donald Trump. I blame every bit of it on Donald Trump. And the reason being is that he could have stepped up and said, "Hey, this is not appropriate. We as Americans should not be terrorizing our communities or even the Capitol, in that matter." I strongly believe that doing so will not, for one, Trump had got banned on social media, which I'm happy for. But for another, Trump should not be able to hold a political office because of the crime. So basically, my take on it would be, what's the point? What's the point in terrorizing the Capitol just to try to ruin chances in other hands for Mike Lee, or sorry, not Mike Lee, but Donald Trump to even run again if he's planning on. So,
yeah, Utah's a pretty red state. Have you had a chance to talk to your neighbors or friends who might be on the other side of the aisle, or do you think they agree that this sort of was one step too far? Or as an example, I have MAGA supporters in my family who they feel when I asked them about it, that the first thing they talked about was the riots during the Black Lives Matter stuff this summer. And they don't seem to be eager to condemn the actions of the insurgents that literally kick their way into the Congress during a ratification of electoral votes, which I would think is a pretty big deal. But what are you hearing from your community?
So what we hear from our communities is the hurt and the pain that this country, with Donald Trump in office, from the Democratic side, the Republican side, they agree with what's going on, but I don't believe the stuff that Donald Trump had done while he was in office for the last 4 years. And I think, I think he should consider just leaving office. Yeah, we only have 11 days with him in office, but anything could happen in that 11 days, right? There could be another attack. There could not be, but we can't take that chance. And the people down here, they agree with what's going on, and a lot of people down here has actually voted for Biden and Harris, for the fact that the stuff that Donald Trump is doing.
Yeah, with the talk of removing the president, with the 25th Amendment or impeaching him, on the one hand, I'm absolutely disgusted by how this man convinced half the country that he was robbed and it was rigged, and he's basically fanned these flames that finally reached all the way into the well of the US Senate. On the other hand, I worry a little bit that his impeachment or removal, with, to your point, less than 2 weeks left, could only further divide the country. And if anything, if I had to pick between punishing Trump or unifying the country, as much as I'd love to do both, like, if I had to pick one, I'd want to unify the country so that we can actually solve real problems facing us and not just constantly kind of call each other terrible names and things. What's your take on that? Do you think, I've heard the other argument that is like, we need to set a precedent that this is not acceptable, and it needs to be crystal clear that we rebuke this kind of behavior. What's your sense of the trade-off of removing or impeaching this man and the impact on his followers? Because I don't think they're going to take kindly to that.
Yeah, they definitely won't take kindly to anything. But my take on it is basically, yes, I completely agree that we need to remove Donald Trump from office, for the fact that what happened Wednesday was unacceptable. We as Americans should unite together, and we should work together. It doesn't matter about Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Independents. We should all come together, and we should work together to be able to unify the economy and get back on track. And yeah,
I worry that removing him or impeaching him will only force his supporters to almost treat him like some kind of martyr. Like, oh, they stole the election and then they had the audacity to impeach him just because some people walked into the Senate and broke a couple shards of glass. And, our great leader has been besmirched, and all the more reason why we'll never work with those snowflakes, yada, yada, yada. Are you worried about further polarizing the country by taking further action against half of the country's dear leader?
Well, I think the best way forward is yeah, a lot of people is with Donald Trump, but I don't necessarily agree that he would go on would go on television saying that he loves everyone who had done this. Um, I think that was a bad move. Um, but but what I think is that we need to get him out of office. Yeah, we only have 11 days left, like I mentioned, but I think Biden can do a lot better job.
Like, do you feel like he really could do more harm in the next 11 days? Don't do you? Some people could argue that he's been chastened. He's clearly been kind of rebuked. He's lost his Twitter account. He'll just kind of simmer down. Or do you actually think he would try and cause more trouble in such a short period of time?
Yeah, I definitely think that Donald Trump, there's what 11 days left of his term. I definitely think anything is possible. Me and my wife had a conversation about this, and she's like, in 11 days, Donald Trump can cause major damage that's going to be left for us to pick up. So I think removing him right now would actually be good for the economy in many ways. I don't I don't agree with Donald Trump and what he's done in the past. Especially what happened Wednesday. Definitely agree on the 25th Amendment, and we should definitely get rid of Donald Trump.
All right. Well, Austin, I very much appreciate you visiting the Nerd Show. Before we wrap up, were there any other topics or call outs you wanted to share with the audience?
Yeah, so there's many people who don't know about me. My name is Austin Searle. I'm a Democratic candidate running on a universal basic income, as well as other topics. You can find my policies at austinforsenate.com. Donate to the campaign. I believe Tom had linked the donation link in the description. So consider donating to the campaign. And I look forward to beating Mike Lee in 2022, but I cannot do it unless you guys are willing to help the campaign. Other than that, all the Democrats out here in Utah, we're all coming together, and we're gonna defeat Mike Lee. We're gonna make sure he doesn't get reelected in 2022. So any donation that you make to the campaign will go strictly to getting the message out. And I believe getting the message out to Republicans as well. Well, there's already so many Republicans that's against Mike Lee for the fact that he has lied to all of us. So I think getting the message out will help our chances in beating Mike Lee in 2022.
All right. Well, Austin, you certainly have a challenge ahead of you, but it is the American way to always shoot for the stars. And certainly I support, what you're trying to do. And if you could find a way to get rid of Mike Lee in the Senate, that would be fantastic. And everybody watching this, go give Austin a look and read up on him. And if you decide you want to pitch in, go check out austinforsenate.com. And hopefully we'll have you back in the future, Austin, to give us another update from the field in Utah. And stay safe in the meantime, and keep up the great work.
All right. Thank you so much, Tom, for having me on. This was a pleasure. And for everyone that's watching, thank you for watching. This means a lot.
Right on, brother. Goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye, nerds.